The sun was shining that morning, but Adaora felt a strange chill in her bones. She stood in front of the mirror, dressed in her black graduation gown, her cap tilted neatly, her lips trembling in a smile she didn't feel. Today was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, the day her mother's tears would finally turn to joy, the day her father's sacrifices would finally mean something. Her phone buzzed. One new message. Unknown number. Don't collect your certificate. If you do, someone you love will die before sunset. Her breath caught. She read it again. And again. Her hands shook so badly the phone almost slipped. She looked out the window, searching the street as if the sender might be standing there, watching. Was this a prank? Or, was it real? The smell of fried eggs drifted in from the kitchen. Mama was humming as she prepared breakfast. Her younger brother, Chitty, was laughing in the sitting room, playing a game on his phone. And for the first time in her life, Adaora didn't know if she wanted to step out of the house. You're watching Nightfall Tales by Wura, where every story grips your heart and refuses to let go. Stay with us, because this one will haunt you long after the credits roll. The message. Adaora sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, staring at the message like it was a snake ready to bite. She pressed the screen to call the number, but it went straight to number not reachable. She tried again. Same thing. A cold bead of sweat rolled down her back. Mama's voice floated in from the kitchen. Adaora. Come and eat before it gets cold. You know we have to leave early. Today you must look like a queen. Adaora forced a smile and stepped out. Mama was in her wrapper and head tie, her face glowing with pride. Chitty sat on the sofa, grinning. Ada, you're too fine today. I pity the boys in your school. Normally, Adaora would tease him back, but her mind was stuck on the message. She could barely swallow her food. Her eyes kept darting to the clock, the ceremony was in less than 2 hours. Don't collect your certificate, or someone you love will die. The thought stabbed at her. What if this wasn't a joke? She'd heard enough stories of strange warnings turning out to be real. But if she didn't collect her certificate, 4 years of struggle would mean nothing. Her father's health was failing, this was the one thing he was waiting to see before his time came. Her phone buzzed again. Another message. Same number. You have been warned. I am watching you. This time, her blood ran cold. The stranger outside. The walk to the taxi park was quiet. Mama was busy fussing over her makeup, telling her to sit upright so her gown wouldn't get rumpled. Chitty was skipping ahead, too excited to care. Adaora's eyes scanned the street. Every man leaning against a wall, every motorcyclist waiting for a passenger, she wondered if one of them was the sender. Then she saw him. A tall man in a black hoodie, standing across the road. Hood pulled low, hands in pockets. She couldn't see his face, but his head was tilted in her direction. He wasn't moving. Just watching. Her steps slowed. Ada, what is it? Mama asked. Nothing, Mama, she lied, forcing herself to keep walking. But her pulse was hammering. As they waited for a taxi, Adaora risked another glance. The man was still there. Still watching. When they got into the taxi, she tried to shake it off. Maybe he was just a passerby. Maybe she was imagining things. But as the taxi drove off, she saw him again, this time, walking slowly in the same direction they were headed. The air in her chest felt heavier. The university campus was alive with music, laughter, and the rustle of graduation gowns. Proud parents held bouquets, photographers called out for students to pose. The atmosphere was a celebration, but to Adaora, it felt like a trap. Her best friend, Ifeoma, ran up to her, squealing. My graduate. Today, we shine. Adaora forced a laugh and hugged her tightly. But even as they walked to the auditorium, her eyes scanned the crowd for the man in the black hoodie. She didn't see him. That made her even more nervous. The vice-chancellor began his long speech.
Names would soon be called, certificates handed out one by one. Mama and Chitty sat in the audience, waving proudly whenever Adaora looked their way. She kept telling herself, it's just a prank. Nothing will happen.
Then she felt a vibration in her pocket.
Her phone. Another message. She opened it under the table. You have 10 minutes. Decide. Her heart stopped. Because this time, there was a picture attached. It was Chitty. Sitting in the audience.
Smiling, unaware that someone had just taken his photo from somewhere very close by.
Adaora's hands went cold as she stared at the image of Chitty. The picture was taken just seconds ago, from somewhere in the auditorium.
Whoever sent it was here, close enough to touch her family. She scanned the hall, her eyes darting between rows, looking for any suspicious face.
Too many people. Too many smiling strangers.
Her breathing grew shallow.
She tried calling the number again. No luck. Ifeoma noticed her trembling hands. Ada, what's wrong?
Adaora leaned close, her voice barely a whisper.
Someone is watching us.
They sent me a picture of Chitty, just now.
Ifeoma's eyes widened. What? Who?
I don't know, Adaora said, trying to keep her voice steady.
And they said, if I collect my certificate, someone I love will die today.
Ifeoma stared at her in disbelief, then glanced at Chitty in the crowd.
Oh my God. Ada, this is serious.
The vice-chancellor's voice boomed from the stage, calling out the first set of names. The graduates rose, collecting their certificates to loud applause.
Adaora's name would be called soon.
She kept her eyes fixed on Chitty.
Mama had her arm around him, whispering something to make him laugh.
Neither of them knew they were in danger. Then another message buzzed in.
7 minutes left. The choice. Adaora's mind raced. She had two options.
1. Refuse to collect her certificate and walk away from 4 years of hard work.
2. Collect it, and risk losing someone she loves forever. Ada, what are you going to do? Ifeoma asked, her voice shaking. I don't know, Adaora admitted.
But deep inside, she knew she couldn't just sit and wait for disaster. She had to find whoever was doing this now. She rose quietly from her seat, ignoring Ifeoma's confused look, and slipped out of the row.
She pretended she needed the restroom, but her eyes scanned every corner of the auditorium as she walked. Her phone buzzed again. 5 minutes. This time, Adaora replied, Who are you? What do you want from me? The answer came instantly. Meet me outside the main gate. Come alone.
Her heart thudded in her ears.
She knew it could be a trap, but doing nothing might be worse. She texted Ifeoma, stay with Mama and Chitty. Don't let them out of your sight.
Then she slipped out of the auditorium and headed toward the main gate, every step heavy with fear.
The man at the gate. The sunlight outside was blinding after the dim auditorium.
Students and parents moved about, laughing and taking pictures. Adaora pushed through the crowd, her eyes scanning for the man in the black hoodie. She spotted him leaning against the wall near the main gate, hands still deep in his pockets. This time, she could see part of his face, sharp jawline, thin lips, eyes that didn't blink often. As she approached, he straightened up. You're late, he said, his voice low and cold.
Who are you? She demanded. What do you want from me? He didn't answer.
Instead, he held up his phone and showed her another photo, this time of Mama, taken from the back, sitting in the audience.
You have 3 minutes before they call your name, he said. If you want them safe, you'll do exactly as I say. Adaora's pulse roared in her ears. Why are you doing this? The man's lips curled into a faint smile. Ask your father. If you can find him. Her stomach dropped. My father? He's sick, he's at home.
The man's smile widened, and he leaned closer.
Is he?
Before Adaora could speak, he turned and melted into the crowd, disappearing as quickly as he had appeared. Her phone buzzed again.
2 minutes. Decide. The final seconds. Inside the auditorium, the Vice-Chancellor's voice echoed through the speakers. The list of names was moving dangerously close to hers. Adaora's mind was spinning. 2 minutes, decide. She could still see Mama and Chitty from the open doorway. They were laughing, completely unaware that a stranger's phone camera had just made them pawns in a deadly game. Her palms were damp. Every instinct screamed at her to run back inside, grab her family, and leave, but what if the man's threat was real? What if walking away from the ceremony didn't stop him? Then the speakers blared. Adaora Kayamaka Okafor. The hall erupted in cheers from her classmates. All eyes turned to the empty seat where she should have been. Ifeoma stood, scanning the hall frantically. Her legs moved on their own. She was halfway to the stage before she realized what she was doing. If I don't collect it, I lose everything. If I do, I might lose someone. She stepped onto the stage. The Vice-Chancellor smiled, holding out the certificate. The moment her fingers touched it, her phone buzzed again. Too late. The vanishing. Adaora's head whipped toward the audience. Mama and Chitty were still in their seats, but her heart was pounding like war drums. She quickly left the stage and hurried to them. Mama, Chitty, we have to go. Now, she whispered urgently. Mama frowned. What's wrong? The ceremony isn't over. No time, Mama, please. Adaora grabbed their hands and started pulling them toward the exit. They reached the outer corridor, and that's when Adaora realized something terrifying. Chitty's hand was no longer in hers. She spun around. He was gone. Chitty? Her voice cracked. She pushed through the crowd, calling his name, scanning every face. Panic tightened her chest like a vice. Then her phone buzzed again. You took the certificate. Now I take him. Her knees weakened. She stared at the message in horror, the noise of the crowd fading into a dull roar in her ears. Mama was screaming Chitty's name now, fear etched deep into her face. Adaora's mind raced. She had only seen the man in the black hoodie twice, but she knew in her gut it was him. She just didn't know why. The first clue. Adaora bolted toward the main gate. If the man had taken Chitty, he couldn't have gone far, not with all the campus security around. But the crowd outside was a swirling sea of people, cars honking, camera flashes popping. She stopped at the exact spot where the man had stood earlier. On the ground was something shiny, a keychain, shaped like a lion's head. She picked it up. It wasn't just a keychain. It had a faded engraving on the back, OCO 1998. Her breath caught. OCO, those were her father's initials. A voice behind her said, "You shouldn't be here, Adaora." She turned sharply. A tall, broad-shouldered man in a brown security uniform was standing there. His eyes darted to the keychain in her hand. Where did you get that? She hesitated. Do you know what it means? His jaw tightened. I knew your father. And if you're holding that, you're in more danger than you realize. Before she could ask more, a car engine roared to life nearby. She looked up just in time to see a black sedan speeding away from the curb, and in the back seat, pressed against the window, was Chitty's terrified face. The chase. Adaora's feet moved before her mind caught up. She sprinted toward the black sedan, weaving through the crowd, her graduation gown flapping wildly behind her. Mama's cries echoed somewhere far behind. The car was already at the main road. Horns blared as it cut across traffic, heading toward the city. Adaora burst out through the gate, nearly colliding with a motorcycle. Follow that car, she shouted, throwing herself onto the seat behind the rider. She didn't even ask the price. The rider, startled but willing, gunned the engine. The sedan was fast, slipping through narrow streets, but Adaora kept her eyes locked on it. Every second counted. Chitty was inside, and she had no idea what they wanted from him. Then, at a junction, the car swerved sharply into a dirt road lined with old warehouses. The motorcycle followed, but a truck suddenly pulled out, blocking the path. By the time they got past, the sedan was gone. Adaora's chest burned from the rush of fear. She stepped off the bike, scanning the empty road. The only thing left was the faint smell of exhaust and something else. Petrol. She knew then that whoever had taken Chitty wanted her to follow a trail. The secret passed. Adaora returned to campus, shaken and breathless. Mama was pacing like a trapped animal, demanding answers from anyone who would listen. The security officer in the brown uniform was waiting for her at the gate. His name tag read Okeke. "We need to talk," he said, pulling her aside. "That keychain you found, it's from a group your father used to be involved with. Not the kind of people you want to cross." Adaora's stomach tightened. "What group?" Okeke glanced around before lowering his voice. "The OCO Brotherhood. They were powerful in the late 90s, businessmen, politicians, and dangerous men. Your father wasn't just a member. He was one of the founders." Adaora shook her head. "That's impossible. My father's a simple man. He's never." Okeke cut her off. "He walked away from them 20 years ago. People don't walk away from the Brotherhood without a price. If they've come for your brother, it's not about him. It's about your father, and about you." Her phone buzzed again. A new message. "If you want the boy back, come to the old train station by 4 p.m. Come alone. Bring the certificate." Adaora's pulse spiked. 4 p.m. was less than 2 hours away. The old train station. The train station was a ghost of its former self. Rusted tracks, shattered windows, weeds breaking through the concrete floor. The air smelled of oil and damp metal. Adaora clutched her bag, the certificate inside. Her heart thumped against her ribs as she stepped through the shadows. Somewhere in the distance, a bird screeched. Over here, a voice called. The man in the black hoodie emerged from the darkness. Chitty stood beside him, his hands tied but unharmed. Relief surged through Adaora, but she didn't dare move closer. "You have what I want?" the man asked. Adaora held up the certificate. "Here. Now let him go." He smirked. "Not so fast. First, you're going to deliver a message to your father. Tell him, the debt is due. And this time, it will be paid in blood." Before Adaora could speak, 2 more men stepped out of the shadows, one holding a phone, the other holding something long and sharp wrapped in cloth. The man in the hoodie tossed her a small envelope. "Open it when you get home. That will tell you how to save your brother and your father." Then, without warning, they shoved Chitty into the back of a waiting pickup truck. The engine roared, and within seconds, they were gone again. Adaora stood frozen in the middle of the empty station, the envelope shaking in her hands. The envelope. The envelope felt heavier than it should. Adaora tore it open with trembling hands as she walked away from the abandoned train station. Inside was a single sheet of paper, folded twice. She opened it and froze. It wasn't a message. It was a photograph. Her father, 20 years younger, standing with 5 other men in front of a luxury car. They all wore the same lion head keychain Adaora had found earlier. In the picture, her father's smile was wide, but his eyes were cold. On the back of the photo, scrawled in red ink, were 3 words. The blood oath. She stopped walking, her pulse hammering. She had heard her father tell many stories, but never one about an oath. And never about dangerous men. Mama was waiting at home, pacing the small sitting room, eyes swollen from crying. "Where is Chitty?" she demanded. Adaora handed her the photo. "Mama, what is this?" The moment Mama saw it, her face changed. Not fear. Not confusion. Something worse, recognition. Mama's confession. Mama sank into the sofa, clutching the photo. Her hands shook, and when she finally looked up, there were tears in her eyes. "Adaora, your father was not always the man you think he is," she said quietly. Before I met him, he was part of something dark. They called themselves the OCO Brotherhood of Chukwu Order. It started as a group of young men who wanted to help each other rise in life. But it turned into greed, power, and blood. Adaora swallowed hard. Blood? What do you mean? Mama hesitated. There was a ritual. They swore an oath, sealing it with human blood. Once you took it, you belonged to them for life. Your father walked away after something terrible happened, something he never told me in full. But I know this, men don't leave that group alive unless they have something the group wants back. Adaora's voice cracked. And now they've taken Chitty to get it? Mama nodded slowly. Yes. And if they're talking about a debt, they mean the blood oath must be repaid. Before Adaora could ask more, her phone buzzed again. You have 48 hours to bring your father to us. Or the boy dies. Father's hiding place. Adaora's stomach churned. Her father wasn't home, he hadn't been for the past week. Mama had told her he'd gone to the village to rest and recover, but now Adaora doubted every word. Where is he, Mama? She demanded. Mama looked away. If I tell you, they might follow you. It's safer if you stay out of this. Mama, Adaora said, her voice fierce. They already have Chitty. Staying out of this is not an option. Silence. Then Mama exhaled heavily. There's an old house in Umudike, deep in the bush. Your father goes there when he wants to disappear. He keeps no phone, no light, only his old friends know the way. Without waiting, Adaora grabbed her bag. The certificate, the photo, and the lion head keychain were all inside. It took her 4 hours on a rattling bus to reach the outskirts of Umudike. From there, she hired a motorcyclist to take her down a narrow dirt path until they reached a lonely house surrounded by tall grass. She stepped down, heart pounding, and knocked on the wooden door. After a moment, it creaked open and her father stood there. His eyes widened in shock. Adaora? What are you doing here? She held up the photo. We need to talk. Now. The truth. Her father's face tightened the moment he saw the photo. He stepped aside and let her in. The house smelled of dust and old wood, its walls lined with faded books and a few oil lamps. Where did you get this? He asked, his voice low. Adaora didn't answer. She simply placed the photo on the table, beside the lion head keychain. They've taken Chitty. They said the debt is due. They want you. Her father's shoulders slumped, as if the weight of 20 years had just landed on him again. He sank into a chair, rubbing his forehead. I thought they would never find me, he murmured. I thought, after all these years. Papa, what is the blood oath? Adaora demanded. He looked up slowly, eyes dark. The blood oath is a binding ritual of the OCO Brotherhood. We swore to protect each other, no matter what. But it came with a price. Every major victory, every wealth we gained, had to be balanced with blood. We took from the world, and we had to give back. Adaora's stomach turned. You killed people? I never did, he said sharply. But I was part of it. That was enough. The night I left, one of our own was marked for sacrifice. He was my friend. I couldn't let it happen. I helped him escape. The others never forgave me. He looked away, his voice dropping. And now, they will take someone I love to pay that debt. The plan. Adaora paced the small room. We have 48 hours. They said if we bring you, they'll release Chitty. Her father shook his head. No. If I go, they will kill me and still keep your brother. That's how they work. Then what do we do? He was silent for a long moment. Then he said, the Brotherhood has one weakness, proof. They operate in shadows, but if their secrets ever became public, they would crumble. I still have something from those days. Something they would trade anything to get back. He walked to a dusty cabinet and pulled out a metal box. Inside was a thick leather-bound book. Adaora opened it. The pages were filled with names, dates, payments, and deaths. This ledger, her father said quietly, contains every crime they committed for 10 years. They've been hunting me for it since the day I disappeared. Adaora's mind spun. So we trade the ledger for Chitty? Yes, her father said. But it must be done carefully. If they sense a trap, we're all dead. Into the lion's den. By the time they left Umudike, the sun had dipped low, casting long shadows on the dirt road. Adaora kept glancing at the leather-bound ledger in her bag, her heart thudding with every bump in the road. They reached the city at nightfall. Adaora's phone buzzed with another message. Tomorrow. Midnight. The old slaughterhouse on Creek Road. Come alone. Bring him and the ledger. The slaughterhouse. Adaora knew it, a sprawling, abandoned building on the edge of town. She had passed it once as a child and remembered the rusted hooks dangling from the ceiling like claws. Her father's voice was grim. If we walk in there unprepared, we won't walk out. Then we don't go unprepared, Adaora said, her jaw set. I have an idea. But Papa, it's risky. He looked at her for a long moment, then nodded. Tell me. In the shadows of the small room they had taken for the night, Adaora outlined her plan, a plan that would either save Chitty, or destroy them all. The old slaughterhouse loomed in the darkness, its corrugated roof groaning under the weight of years. The moonlight cast long, jagged shadows through broken windows. The smell of rust and damp earth hung heavy in the air. Adaora's grip tightened around her bag. Inside was the ledger. Her father walked beside her, silent but tense, his steps deliberate. They reached the massive metal doors. They were half open, as if waiting for them. From the darkness inside, a voice called, "Come in, Adaora. Bring your father." They stepped inside. The flicker of a single hanging bulb revealed half a dozen men scattered around the room. All wore the lion head keychain. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Chitty, alive, but bruised. His eyes lit up when he saw Adaora. The man in the black hoodie stepped forward. His hood was down now, revealing a face hard as stone. A faint scar ran down his cheek. You have what I want, he asked. Adaora held up the ledger. Let him go first. He smirked. You're not in a position to negotiate. He turned to his men. Take it. Two men stepped forward. But before they could reach her, Adaora spoke. This isn't the only copy, she said, her voice steady. The moment I hand this over, 3 more copies will be sent to the police, and to the press. The room went still. The men exchanged uneasy glances. You're bluffing, the leader said. Adaora smiled faintly. Am I? For a moment, the only sound was the creak of the old roof. Then, slowly, the leader lowered his hand. Release the boy. One of the men untied Chitty and shoved him toward Adaora. She caught him, holding him tightly for a brief moment before stepping back. Now the ledger, the leader demanded. Adaora glanced at her father. He gave a small nod. She tossed the ledger toward the leader, who caught it with both hands. The moment he opened it, his face twisted in anger. Half the pages were blank. You! He began, but his words were cut off by the sound of sirens wailing outside. The leader's eyes went wide. How? Adaora didn't answer. She simply turned, dragging Chitty and her father toward the doors. Police lights flooded the entrance as armed officers stormed in. Chaos erupted, men shouting, boots pounding on the concrete, the leader screaming orders as he was wrestled to the ground. Outside, in the cool night air, Adaora finally let herself breathe. Her father's voice was low but filled with pride. You're braver than I ever was. Adaora smiled faintly, still holding Chitty close. Papa, we're not free yet. But at least today, we survived. As they walked away from the flashing lights, the first hint of dawn painted the horizon. Graduation day had started as a celebration, turned into a nightmare, and ended as a fight for survival. Adaora knew one thing: she would never forget the price they had paid for this day. For Adaora, this day was supposed to mark the beginning of her future. Instead, it became the night she learned that survival can be a greater victory than any diploma. Evil doesn't always wear a mask, sometimes it wears a smile, shakes your hand, and sits beside you in class. But remember, courage is not the absence of fear. It is standing your ground when fear tries to swallow you whole. Graduation day was not just a ceremony. It was a test. And Adaora passed it, not by walking across a stage, but by walking away, alive. Pause. If this story gripped your heart, subscribe for more unforgettable tales that remind us that life's biggest lessons are often learned in the darkest hours.